Photography spans many years, and the process has evolved significantly in that time. One of the first methods of photography to be easily mass-produced was the form of Albumen Print. Albumen Print was invented in 1850 by Louis Desiré Blanchard Everard, and it became the most widespread method of creating photographs for decades to follow. This was because it produced a much clearer result than previous photography techniques.
The process of creating albumen print begins with beating and then salting egg whites. Paper is then coated with the resulting albumen to create a smooth surface, and then sensitized with silver nitrate. The coated paper is then placed in contact with a negative and exposed to light to reveal an image on the print. Posed and unposed photography. Due to photographic film requiring long exposure times, subjects in photographs had to remain still for extended periods, meaning they were always, to a certain extent, posed uncandid shots. Fun fact, this also explains why no one smiles in old photographs. It was a long and expensive process.
And people can't hold smiles for that long.
As time went on and photography became a much simpler, quicker process, capturing moments instantaneously became a possibility, and the idea of a candid, unposed shot that captured a live event became reality.
Here we have an example of a posed shot of Major General George B. McClellan. The subject is clearly standing still in a chosen pose. To contrast this, we have Cristiano Ronaldo performing a header. The subject here is airborne, something only possible to capture in an unposed candid photograph. We've chosen some of our favorite photos from the books Life and Death of Buildings and Seeking the Light. Let's go through them.
The first piece we have is the Upper Gallery, which was created in 1854 by Philip Henry Delamont in London, England. The shot is of a building known as Crystal Palace, which Delamont frequently liked to capture in his photographs. It's an albumen silver print made from a glass negative, which is 20 9/16 inches by 14 1/2 inches.
I find it interesting that Delamont was going back to the same building and photographing it throughout the process of it being built. It's almost like a proto movie in a way.
Yeah, he actually has pictures where he comes back after it was built and photographs in all kinds of events. It was really a staple of his work.
So it was really following the life of this building.
Exactly, yeah.
One of my favorite photographs from the book Seizing the Light is called Pure Energy and Neurotic Man, created by Barbara Morgan in 1941. Barbara was born in America in 1900 and created this photograph using gelatin silver print. It's pretty large at 19 by 15 inches, and you just have this energy form that's sort of just dancing around. And this is something that's very characteristic of her other work, where she's photographing dancers in motion. And there's this theme of dynamism throughout all her work. And it's just very interesting how you have this abstract light and it almost looks like it's dancing.
You know, it's actually kind of interesting. The hand almost looks like it's out and seizing the light, as it were. The next piece we have is 67 Milk Street, the Boston Button Company, opposite the new post office. This was created in 1872 by James Wallace Black, also known as J.W. Black, in Boston, Massachusetts, post the Great Fire of 1872 of that same year. James Wallace Black was born in 1825, and his creation of this 17 by 12 1/16 inch albumen print, he depicts this massive gargantuan building wall left over from the terrible fire that absolutely decimated almost everything in the area. Actually, what's interesting is that while many pieces and photographs often like to focus on the post office that is actually situated right behind where the camera would have been in this picture, that was left completely unscathed by the fire, J.W. Black actually offered to take a photo of the exact opposite side of the street, the destroyed Boston Button Company building instead.
I think it's interesting how you have these people in the foreground and they're just absolutely dwarfed by this massive wall behind them. And it's just crumbling. It really shows just how devastating that fire was in 1872.
Exactly. And I think that was actually what J.W. Black was going for. He wasn't going for the hopeful post office that avoided the fire. He was going for what was really attacked.
The next piece I found is untitled, but it's composed of a bunch of geometric shapes on white corrugated cardboard. This piece was created by Herbert Bayer in the 1930s, and he was an Austrian-American photographer born in 1900 as well. And he took these photographs on gelatin silver print as well. And this is a 9 by 12 photograph of just these shapes that are sort of strewn around. And Bayer was actually trained at the Bauhaus, the premier school of modern art, as it were. And it's so interesting to see how, while most modern art at the time was trying to vanquish the third dimension, Bayer's work instead decided to exaggerate it and truly emphasize just how prevalent that third dimension was.
What's actually kind of intriguing about this photograph is that while it does root itself in the realistic geometric figures, there is some surrealism or abnormalism to it, with the odd positions that the cubes are located in, almost floating in space, unobstructed, and also unsupported by anything else. The final piece I have to show is the Tule Lake Relocation Camp Stockade, which was created in 1992 by Masumi Hayashi. Hayashi, being born in 1945 after the death of her father, who was a member of these Japanese relocation camps during World War II, went out and began to document the American camps with panoramic photographic collages. This image, being one of the relocation camps, really serves as a great example of what her work entailed. It's a 27-inch by 79-inch, so a rather large collage that greatly captures one of these locations' stockades, which is kind of one of the storehouses and purchasing houses for the members of the relocation camp.
And I feel like making this a panoramic collage as opposed to just a regular photograph of the space really tries to envelop the viewer in what the space was like and give them almost an experience of what it was like to be there.
Yeah,
and I think this collage really does a good job of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think what Hayashi was trying to go for in her collages of these relocation camps was exactly that, trying to kind of place you in the shoe of somebody who was there at that moment and representing to you what is before you, what is the relocation camp in its entirety.
The final piece that I have is called Equivalent, taken in 1925 by Alfred Stieglitz. It was created using gelatin silver print with a 4 by 5 inch Graflex camera using contact-only prints, meaning that they were not enlarged. So they stayed at the original dimensions of 6 5/8 by 4 5/8. Equivalent was a series of photographs taken by Stieglitz of the sky, though the exact location and even the idea that it was of the sky was unimportant to him, as he wanted it to be completely abstract, which is seemingly opposed to the medium of photography. And I feel like it relates to his other art in that Equivalent is a series of photographs that seeks to view the sky, which is something that everyone has come in contact with every day. And he wants to see it as an abstract, emotional concept without literal interpretation.
Actually, kind of funny that you mentioned that, because when you first showed me this piece, I asked you what this was, if it was just like one of those pictures that somebody actually takes with their thumb on the lens, because I really could not tell upon first glance that was of the sky, which I believe was completely Stieglitz's intention when creating the series. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We hope you had an enjoyable and informative experience.